If there's an answer, they're gonna find it. I think you'll have a great time here. I think you'll have a great time here.
So, hello again and welcome to another episode of Quick Question with Soren and Daniel, the podcast where two best friends and comedy writers ask each other questions and give each other answers. I am one half of that podcast, senior writer for Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, author of How to Fight Presidents, and of the four people in this room, the least interesting one, Daniel O'Brien, joined as always by my co-host, the second least interesting one, Mr. Soren Bowie. Soren, say hello.
Hey, everybody, I'm Soren Bowie. We really should have turned this around. we found out that some of the other people working on this podcast are going to very interesting places in Europe and in Africa, and we don't do that.
No, we don't.
I couldn't have been helpful. We're doing a video version of this podcast if you're listening to the audio, and I was mimicking, and I was trying to do it as like a, hey, we're on the same team type of thing, where you were doing gestures.
Yeah, I was doing gestures for all the words that I was saying.
What if we had it timed? Like, what if we did it together?
Yeah.
And I thought, this is probably distracting for him.
No. It was fun. It's a really easy comedy hack for my brain is for someone to do not actual sign language, but like mimed interpretations of songs or things that they're saying. There was a comedian, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. He was Tucker in There's Something About Mary, and he was the non-Nathan Lane brother in the movie Mouse Hunt. So we all know who I'm talking about.
Oh.
He's also like a
Oh, Brother, where?
successful British comedian, and he did a whole bit where I think it's to Bohemian Rhapsody, and he's just doing that kind of like fake sign language where little silhouette of a man and grabs his dick and like does the entire thing where he's just like doing like crude but very obvious visual hand and body representations of the words, and that kind of thing just kills me every time. I've seen it done a few times. They do it in The Play That Goes Wrong off Broadway right now, and it's just great fun. And I was trying to do a version of it.
It's just now occurring to me that when somebody says something and you're like, yes, that's right, you touch your nose. You know that old sign?
Yeah.
Where you're like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, like it. For a long time, I thought maybe that's just on the nose, but it does very clearly also mean like, he knows.
Yeah.
He knows.
I wonder if that's where it comes from.
I don't know. I surely there'd be a way to find out. I don't want to think about it. Well, Daniel, I want to start the episode by doing a injury update.
Okay.
How is your foot?
It's better. It's still not like the coloration is still not 100% normal.
Is it yellow? Is it like a deep, like paltry yellow?
It's yellow. Yeah, it's yellow around the toes where the blood was pooling the most. And I feel pretty comfortable walking around my Airbnb and like the apartment area without this boot on. Mm-hmm. And I today at the gym did my first time doing the entire workout without the boot.
Whoa.
Yeah. I wasn't like putting a ton of weight on my foot, but I was just like freely walking around in workout shoes. I think I could probably get away with mostly not wearing it. The problem is other people, because wearing the boot lets people know that I am inferior right now.
You're a broken egg.
I'm to like clear a little bit more room for me and to understand that I'm going to be slower. And I really need that. It was very jarring the first time I went to get coffee without the boot. And I was like, why isn't everyone being gentle with me? Why are they treating me like everyone else? Don't they know how scary it is to walk? So I will, in public places, continue to wear this mostly because it's not 100%, and I don't want to I'm not as spry as I normally am with avoiding pedestrian traffic.
Okay. And you weren't worried about like somebody else dropping weights or anything. I guess that doesn't really happen.
No, this gym is it's like Tatooine in the Star Wars prequels. It's not sparsely populated.
That was your frame of reference.
It is sparsely populated. Yes. Because there's quick story. There's when that movie came out, Phantom Menace came out, my brothers and I loved it. We loved the first prequel. Unironically, we were the right age for it.
Right, you were wrong.
And then we went to Wildwood, New Jersey that summer for our family vacation. And there are rides, there are boardwalks, there are snacks, there are beaches, and there are stands where you like games of chance where you throw a ball at and you try to knock down a
I'm
cat.
familiar with boardwalks.
Yeah, okay. I don't know what our audience, what our mostly indoor audience is into, but like you do games and you try to win prizes. And one year, one of the stands had Star Wars character banks. They were like this big, and it was Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Padme, and Darth Maul. And you put a coin, every time you put a coin in the thing, the character moves around and says a line or two from the movie.
Where's the money going? I don't.
It
So
goes
this isn't
in-
like a square. This is like somebody standing on top
there's
of
like
it.
there's like a base that they're
Okay.
standing on top of,
Okay.
and you put the money in the base, and they move, vroom, 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 and they say one of their iconic lines from the movie. Darth Maul in Phantom Menace famously has like 2 or 3 lines, and
Yeah.
they're not interesting.
Right.
And instead of making some up, the people who built this bank were still like, no, we're just going to use the audio from the movie. So you put a coin in Qui-Gon's thing, and he says something cool that a Jedi would say. Same for Obi-Wan. You get to Darth Maul, and he goes, Tatooine is sparsely populated. Vroom, 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 vroom. Because that was like one of the 2 lines they had to choose from. And so that is just always in my head. So the gym, like Tatooine, was sparsely populated. And they
so he fights and then says some like
Just some-
California's gold shit about Tatooine.
Yeah, just some exposition.
That's wonderful.
And the cool thing about this gym is they have like all the machines that you would expect and everything else that you expect in a gym. And in the section where they have just like mirror and free weights and no benches, there are taped off like zones. This is where you are. This mat fits comfortably 4 people in their individual like lanes. I don't know if that happened after COVID or if that was always the way, but I just thought this is so good. This is so much smarter. That I just like this is the area that I occupy,
Right.
And I'm safe here.
And no one's in it. I love that.
Yeah,
I mean, there is like a tacit understanding that like, please don't go on somebody else's bench space, like anything. And you understand like if somebody's lying on a bench, the most room they could possibly take up is like doing flies, right?
Yeah.
So like that's your arms fully extended to each side. You give people that amount of space, regardless of what they're doing. Like that's the amount of space because who knows what they're going to switch it up to.
yeah,
I love the idea of it being actually law, though.
yeah. It's very, very helpful.
I got in another altercation at the gym. So at the end of last time us doing this, I told you a story about me getting in an altercation at the gym, which was it ended with this guy pouting off by himself, going "stupid ass" under his breath. Now I got into another one
Great.
since then, where there was a guy. And he's like down with his gear and stuff. Like he's got his duffel bag and he's like got his phone out of his duffel bag and he's just kind of like got it pointed to the side. Like he's not looking at it. It's turned perpendicularly to him. And he's like pushing the button on it. And I go and I'm like walking past him to go get water. And I see that he's taking pictures of this woman who's standing there. And I was like, whoa. And came back around and just like confirmed like that he took the pictures and then flipped the phone around to see if he got the photos. And I could see that it was of this woman. And I was like, oh boy, this might be bad. So I went over to her and I said, do you know him? She was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, he was just taking pictures. I'm sorry. And I walked away. I'm doing lifts and stuff. And as I'm working out in another section of the gym, I happened to catch eyes at this guy who was just glaring at me. Just like glaring, like wants to kill me.
They must know how reasonable of a reaction that is.
I thought so.
They must obviously like. If I'm that couple, I'm thinking, oh my God, what he must have thought something terrible was happening. What a gentleman hero for stepping in. He's wrong. What a delightful misunderstanding.
I don't think everybody's online as much as we are. And so what he was doing was like trying to get a candid of her.
Yeah.
It was like, this would be great for her to have. She looks great here. And he was like trying to take a picture of her. And he's doing it surreptitiously because he didn't want her to be like posing for it.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's staring daggers at me. Like, I think that he wants to kill me. And I kind of like give him a wave and he just shakes his head. And I was like, oh man. So I carry my cast with me at the gym. And I was like, I have to approach him. And I'm going to put my cast on so that he knows that I'm I'm a broken egg. And so I put my cast on and I walk over to him and I was like, hey, man, I'm sorry. And it was clear that they had already talked about it because he was like, it's okay. It's okay. And I was like, I just wanted to make sure something weird wasn't going on. And he was like, what? And then he stopped himself. I was like, it's okay. And I don't know what he was going to say. But then I looked over at her and she was smiling. Like, wasn't this like she was giving me the energy that I wanted.
Yeah.
Like that was very kind of you. I didn't realize in the moment. I was just confused what you were doing. But now I'm like, now we're all on the same page. But he was never on the same page with us. He was always like, this motherfucker. And I like in my brain, I was like, he's either thinking that I was trying to move in on her, or like this was going to be my opening line, was like, hey, I'm going to save you from that creep over there. Or he thought that I thought he looked like the type of guy who would do that shit. And he was upset about that.
Don't mope about that, guy.
Well, I don't know, like, hey, a hypothetical guy. So I don't know what it was. The relationship is somewhat repaired. And part of the reason I also went up to him as the broken egg was like, this is a dude I've seen at the gym before. So we've got a similar schedule. And I've never seen him with her before, but he's like a dude that he has cycled through there. And I was like, I'm going to have to run into this guy so frequently. Like, I have to repair this somehow. So I went and just apologized to him. He did give me a fist bump, but at no point was he like,
I understand.
I get it. Yeah. No, you were doing the right thing. And and then I was driving home. I was like, why do I do that shit? Like, why? I always think that, like, I see some wrong in the world and I'm like, I'll fix this and everyone will be happy. And I try to fix it and everyone's like, what the fuck? And I'm like, oh, okay. I got to stop doing that. I'm not a superhero. I shouldn't be doing these things.
I almost, I'm kind of charmed by what I assume is this guy's, how naive he is. Because I can't say the version of that word that I want. Naivete?
Naivete.
Naivete, yeah. I'm almost charmed by that because in my head, he assumes you're moving in on his girl because he can't, for the life of him, imagine a world in which a creepy stranger would take pictures of a woman. Like, to him, if anyone sees him, like, sneakily taking a photo, he'd think, yeah, obviously, I'm taking a candid of my beautiful wife. What other reason could there be?
Yeah, what a beautiful existence.
He just lives in this amazing world.
I guess from his perspective, he just watched a guy. He was not near his wife. He was taking pictures of her from afar. And then a guy walked up to her, pointed at him.
Ruined the photo.
Yeah, and pointed at him, being like, and what looked like him saying, yo, is that your man? Like, are you free? And she was like, that is. And I was like, okay, cool, see ya. Yeah. and he hated me. From that point on, like, it was never going to come back around.
And then they're driving home, and she's like, he was just trying to do the right thing. He's a good guy. I was like, would a good guy just, like, take his cast on and off? This is a liar. It's a known liar. It's at this gym all the time.
I did go pick it yesterday without my cast among people who I had seen maybe twice in the past 2 weeks. And so they had seen the cast, but as far as they were concerned, the injury happened when they saw me because that was the first they were seeing of it. And then I wasn't wearing it. And one woman very accusatorily was like, oh, you don't wear it anymore? Where's your cast? I was like, I fucking healed. What do you want?
That's the thing that I've been bizarrely paranoid about because I've been again toggling on and off between wearing this cast and I have a friend staying with me now in the Airbnb and I've mostly got it on. But I was so worried yesterday before my friend got here that someone in the apartment complex would see me without it and then would see me with it, and then that person would be like, he's faking it. I don't know what he told you. He's fine. He doesn't need it.
Yeah.
But like no one would do that because the only kind of person who would step in to be a hero is you. And you're not staying there. So I'm safe.
I do such humiliating things, Dan. I will be on a run and I'll see someone with their dog pooping and like no plan with a bag. Like they don't have a bag. Like, they're not like reaching into something as the dog is going to the bathroom or anything. And I will stop my run to make sure like far enough away that they're not watching me, but far enough away that I make sure that they are picking up their shit. If they don't, I don't have a plan. Like,
okay, good.
My plan could be then like go up to them and be like, hey, you need to go clean that up. Or I just like keep running and then I'm like, that person's on the list of somebody who has done something wrong in my brain.
Yeah, I mean, you can go to hell on that. We don't always have bags.
Yeah.
So you run out and or sometimes your dog goes more times than you expect and there's nothing you can do and this wasn't the plan, but you look at it and it's like,
It's gonna stay.
it's going to stay. And I feel really bad about that. I'm not going to come back here and clean it up. 'Cause
I
it's too
think
far
that's what I
away.
want. I want to see the.
I will always, like,
wanna
if I
see
don't have a
the
bag,
person
I
be
will,
like,
I will do the entire mime thing of like, good boy, time to, oh no, do I have any? Oh, and now I'm due at the hospital.
Jackson, we got to run home so we can come
Yeah.
back and bring with a bag.
I'm going to put a pin in this location so I know where it is.
I want to see that.
Good,
I want to see
good.
somebody like doing the pageantry.
Yeah.
So that I can be like, we all run into those problems. What I don't like is part of the reason is that there was a patch of grass at my son's previous preschool, now my daughter's preschool. The patch of grass in front of it, and this guy would take his dog over there from the apartment across the street every day, let his dog shit there, and then leave. And so there's like shit all over it. And I would see him doing it every once in a while. And I would get mad at him. And he was the type of person who wasn't like going to get mad back. He was like, okay, I'll see if I can find a bag.
Yeah.
But he would, he wasn't actually doing that. But I could still be like, hey, clean that up. And he would be like, and he looked startled enough that I was like, well, that's all I wanted. Like that scratched the soul itch for me.
Just Superman yelling at a robber. You better not.
Yeah. I told him not to. I realize I do the same thing with my children where like if I see that they're doing something dangerous, I won't stop them from doing it, but I'll be like, don't like you could get hurt. Like watch your head for this.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels like enough. So like when they actually do it then and they get hurt, then I am mad at them. I'm like, I just told you.
Gave you every opportunity.
I didn't stop you, but I was like, I know it could happen, and I'm going to just warn you against that. It's like you can't lose because if they get it right, then great.
Yeah.
If they don't get it right, I was still right.
Right.
It's not fair. It's not fair to them. Should we start this show?
Yeah. Are you doing all right?
Yeah, am I manic?
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
You were. We can tell them you were late today. We were totally fine. We were having a great conversation
I
about
was
stuff.
late. I don't know if that's the only reason. I don't know why I'm this way
Okay.
today.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's a good energy now that we're filming. It's a good energy to
Yeah. Do you want to start the show?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to try and just tone it down a little.
No. I shouldn't have even gotten in your head. I want to get out of your way and see what happens.
This
There's
is actually a good topic.
musical instruments around. Let's see where he goes.
This is a good topic for this. Oh, I wonder if that's tuned down. I could play some really cool old Victor Wooten song that's tuned down to a drop D. Okay. When you're going to, first of all, let me just start by saying, how dare you and how do you sleep at night? Those are my questions.
Great.
How do you sleep at night? How do you sleep at night, Daniel? When I mean, sorry, let me explain by that. I mean, like, how do you go to sleep? Because so many people, I think, have trouble going to sleep at night.
Yes.
They go and get into bed and they lie awake, and you feels like after decades of having done it, you should know.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a book when I was reading when I was younger called The Andromeda Strain by Michael Crichton. And in it, there's a scientist who gets hauled off to this place before they even show him like what has happened and what the issue of the book is. And they're like, just get some sleep because it's going to be a busy day tomorrow. And he, in the book, Michael Crichton just says that he uses an old trick he learned to fall asleep. And I was like, Michael, what's the fucking trick? Like, what is the trick to falling asleep? And so I think about that all the time. Like, is there a trick that you can use to just fall asleep? And I think that I might have one.
Okay.
But I do want to hear what you do to fall asleep. And how do you like keep out like intrusive thoughts while you're trying to go to sleep?
It's a great question. Because I used to struggle with sleep a whole lot and really wanted to reverse that. And the first very obvious thing is just severely reduce my caffeine intake. So there's no caffeine coming in after 10:30, 11.
Oh, wow.
Like I'll do my
at night?
in the morning.
Okay, good.
I also work very hard to keep very busy and active, which has been tough with the foot, but like keep very busy and active and do lots of stuff throughout the day. And to make sure that by the time it's bedtime, I'm tired. Keeping a schedule has been very, very helpful where it's like 9:30 is when I start getting ready for bed. I don't have any kids to take care of, so it's very easy for me to just be like, all right, it's 9:30. It is time for me to, if I'm not asleep, be in bed because now it's time for bed. If I And usually, like I'm ready for sleep at that point because of ritual. Because I get up early, don't have too much caffeine. I do a lot of stuff during the day, and I keep to my schedule. If I'm really having trouble, like the most severe amount of trouble, where I'm just like I've been laying in my bed with my eyes closed for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I can't get to sleep, I will take 2 melatonin gummies.
Okay.
And they will put me to sleep. They're not great at keeping me asleep, but they can get the process started.
Interesting.
And the other thing I've learned that is helpful for me, which I don't have with me in LA, which has been frustrating, sleep mask.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Wait, but isn't that you should just feel it throughout the night, wouldn't you? You don't want to like take it off and like rub your forehead and your cheeks?
Not once. Not 1 second.
Okay. So drugs is some of the answer.
Yeah, sometimes. As always. And the other thing I do before drugs is I will count. I count. Not necessarily sheep, but I
Okay.
count. Breathe in on an odd number, breathe out on an even number, and just do that until about 300. Or I'll set a goal for myself. It's usually 300 because 300 seconds is 5 minutes. Or, no, what is 7 minutes? 500 seconds?
Oh, you're asking Soren Bowie.
Let's say, for example, that 7 minutes is 500 seconds. I read something somewhere, and it could be bullshit, and I could be misconstruing it, but it says it takes the average person 7 minutes to fall asleep. And so I started doing,
That's fast.
I'm going to count to 500. I'm going to just like set a goal of 500, and I'm going to count to it. And I'm going to focus on each breath as I'm counting them. Like the in on odds, out on evens is a good way to just like to focus on one thing, to hyper focus on it. And that is very, I think that's probably the same logic behind counting sheep, where you're just like doing one thing. And our friend and former coworker, Sean Baby, does the same thing when he's trying to get to sleep. Not necessarily counting, but like focus on one thing. Have one thought over and over again.
Yeah.
That you're trying, like one story or one thing, just like one thing that you're focusing on. And then you can start to feel when you're going to sleep. Like when I start to lose count, then I'm like, all right, I got to get back on track. But this is how I know that it's working and I am falling asleep. And the numbers start to fall away, and eventually you're out, buddy.
It will speak to my freneticism today. That when you were telling me that you out on evens, in on odds or whatever, I was half listening. That I was like, God, that's a lot of fast breathing, because I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's like, oh, he's breathing different. He's counting slower.
Yeah. That's how I get that medical grade perfect resting heart rate, baby.
It is interesting to me that you say that you count, because how often do you make it all the way to 300 or 600 or whatever?
Almost never.
Right.
It's the same when I was when I had surgery on my eyelid in like 4th or 5th grade. They're putting you to sleep with a thing.
Yeah.
And
Count
you get
backwards.
really nervous that they're gonna, because they're ready to go. They've got their things, and you're really nervous that you're not gonna be asleep in time. That's everyone's fear, especially in 4th grade. And the doctor's like, just start, because I was like, I'm nervous about this, and they're like, count back from 10 to 1, and if you're still awake by 1, give us a signal, and we'll take you
We'll
out of
stop
this. And I was like,
cutting.
I was like very much like, I'm gonna make it to 1 just to prove your ass wrong. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make it to 1, and I was out by like 7 or whatever it was.
And can you, I know this is a hard ask, but when you're counting, there are other thoughts happening in your head. Can you remember that you are thinking about other things, or does it just seem like the numbers are all that there is?
It's mostly the numbers are all that there is.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm coming away from this sounding very, very healthy and on top of things.
Absolutely.
I was so bad at falling asleep for the longest time.
Okay.
It took me a while, and like 2 years of meditation has been incredibly helpful, because meditation, twice daily transcendental meditation that I do, is 20 minutes twice a day of just closing your eyes and repeating the same mantra over and over again for that entire 20 minutes. And if you lose it, you come back to the mantra.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'm pretty well trained at focusing on a thing and blocking out intrusive thoughts.
Interesting.
It takes work.
So if you start thinking about something that you don't want to be thinking about, or that's like occupying too much of your attention and keeping you awake, you just go back to a mantra and it wipes it away. So I'm doing something very similar, that I didn't realize was like a meditation thing.
It's a fight club.
I'm fighting until someone knocks me
9:30
out,
p.m. every
and
night.
and then I am asleep. I don't even put my fists up. I just wait to get hit, and then I am asleep. I've tried to get my son to do this too, because he has as kids, like, you can't control your thoughts at all. And so like he's like thinking about something bad. He has visions. He has visions of a crystal in a cave. It's a big crystal. He doesn't know what it can do, but he knows it's very powerful, and he's afraid of it. And I'm like, is this a nightmare? And he's like, no, he can just see it.
Well, don't. I mean, follow the boy. What?
Oh, I do.
Go
No,
into the cave.
It's
Yeah,
fun where
go-
I'm like, how big is it? And he's like, it's as big as me. I'm like, what color is it? He's like, it glows kind of like a white green. And I was like, this is great. This is all really good stuff.
Hold on.
Yeah. And I'm like, how long is the cave? How far into the cave is it? Is there water around it? Like, because he has answers for all of these things. So he's like seeing it.
It's probably real then.
And it's the most remarkable thing. I don't want to derail us too much, but like the most remarkable thing is that he's afraid of HIT because he knows that it can do something, but he doesn't know what it is.
This is so cool.
And yeah, so we talk a lot about the crystal, but at night he'll be like, I'm thinking about it again. And I'll be like, okay, this is what I do. I think about if I'm having thoughts that I don't want to be having when I'm trying to go to bed, and that like I'm just getting hung up on the day or whatever it is, I visualize myself putting it being on a sheet, putting it in a manila envelope, and then mailing it off. And like if I then am like those thoughts come back, I just do the same thing again. I put them in the manila envelope.
Is that a real thing you do, or is that lies we tell our children?
No, that's the thing I do.
Oh, cool.
I imagine it's not really like mailing it off, but I do have like, I remember from high school, we had these boxes that you could like, teachers could give you papers back in them and stuff. I would just put it away in my box because I know I'm going to keep checking that later. So it's never going to get lost. But like, I was like, I will deal with this. I'll think about it, but I'm just going to keep it in my box for now. And so like, I will put it in a manila envelope, close it up, seal it, like get those little metal tabs down.
Yeah, of course.
And I will put it in that box. And if those thoughts show up again for me, I do the exact same thing.
That's good that you're just putting it in a box and not mailing it away, because my thing is I never have stamps. So that would be
very stressful.
I would do the whole process in the dream and be like, oh, fuck. Oh, maybe I'll go to Ralph's. More places should sell stamps.
I ran into that hang up with him because he doesn't know what the box is. And so I was like, just put it in an envelope and mail it off. He's like, how am I going to write an address? And I was like, oh, right. Okay, these are there's an address already on there. It's all set. And he's like, don't you need money to send stuff? And I was like, okay, we're getting off track. Like, don't worry about any of that. I've taken care of the manila envelopes. Just mail it. All your only job is to like put this away and mail it away so it's not in your hands anymore. And so I was like giving him that. And so he does use that now.
Good.
Which I think is very similar to having maybe a mantra where it's just like whatever you're thinking about, you just have to have something so polished in your brain, whether it's like a mantra or it's like this one thought process of like, now I slide it in, now I shut it, now I fold down the tabs, now I put it here, that like erases the other stuff.
Yeah.
So that's like how I get rid of those thoughts. But I'm very curious to hear about the counting, because when you're falling asleep, I think that you're having two different thought processes at once.
Yeah.
Like, a chameleon can see 360 degrees and it can move its eyes in independent directions. So it can see two different things at once.
Yeah.
And I feel like we can do that with our minds, like with our brain, where we're actually thinking about two different things at once. As long as like the baseline thing is something that's so easy to think about that it never is a problem. And then as those two things like start to diverge, that's where you fall asleep.
Yeah.
And so if you have something like counting sheep, or you're just counting a number, or some people say that they close their eyes and they imagine each part of their body slowly falling asleep. So their toes relax, their balls of their feet relax, their heels, and like they move all the way up their...
Sorry, I thought you went straight from toes to balls for a second. Like, yeah, you're hitting all the big ones. That's right.
The balls of the feet, because all feet are male, and so they have testicles. And so you have like a very baseline thing that is practiced or that you're good at, and then on top of that, you're just having the other current of thoughts, which would be happening anyway. But because you have the baseline one, you're not hyper focused on like, oh, I really shouldn't have told that guy's girlfriend that he was taking pictures of her, like, and that's like keeping you awake. It's like you have like in the same way like with athletes, they say that when you get to the free throw line, you hum a song because it helps calm you down, and you just your muscles then just know the practice motion already. And all it's doing is like keeping you out of your head. It's like if you have a song, bare minimum is like keeping you away from being too hyper focused that you can't actually do the task at hand. And I feel like the same is true of sleep, where you have something that you. For me, I just close my eyes and I just let a run of like images appear.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what, and I'm not trying to hold on to any of them. It's just like a run of images. Sometimes it's animation, sometimes it's like it's stuff that I saw that day. It really feels like snapshots. It's not like I'm watching a show or anything. And there's no narrative to it at all. It's just this. And then on top of that, I'm having still those thoughts. But I can you start to you'll catch yourself every once in a while. Like when you say you have to get back on track, where you're like, oh, I was really just thinking about two things at once right there.
Yeah.
And and then you start to feel them kind of diverge from each other a little bit more. And that's where I feel like I fall asleep.
Yeah.
And so I try and just do that. I just let that stuff run. The other thoughts continue, and then I just go to sleep.
Do you ever do it with a memory that you know really well?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah,
Because
I do.
I've done that. There are some, the entire process for me of getting hired at Last Week Tonight, not like the interview process or the application process, but this was a job that I wanted for so long, and I was unemployed at the time, so I really wanted any job, but specifically this as a dream job. The parade of telling people that I got it, like the phone call that I got to make to my mom and dad when I didn't tell them when I applied for the job because I was so superstitious about it that I don't think I told them until it was 2 rounds in and I was going to fly to New York for an interview. But the act of telling them about this process and then getting the email from my EP that I was hired, and then the round of phone calls, calling my parents and telling them I got the job and coming back to New York, calling my brother, David, I knew he was at work, but he knew to expect some kind of call, and so I could hear him whispering in the hallway, calling my brother Tommy. I texted you, and then you called me, and I talked to you about it because you were one of my references to get this job, even though I don't think they called you.
No.
Talking to Ben Joseph, who was the person who put me up for this job, and then the rest of that day, grabbing lunch with my friend Nick, grabbing dinner with Caitlin and Brian, and just reliving the memory of this day. I picked this one because it's one I know super well, and it's always a fun thing to revisit. And if I don't feel like counting one night, and I just want to let me just play this scene again. Let me go through this wonderful Tuesday that I had again, and replay it a few times the way you're rewatching an old family video.
It does help wipe out anything else. It's it is a street cleaner basically for your brain, where you're you have a good memory, you can get rid of everything else that's going on, and then you're you have a blank slate. I feel like that's true. I also think that there's something to your thoughts where you're capable of accepting information, of receiving thoughts and not really thoughts, things in front of you that are you're presented with, that, and thinking about something else at the same time, but you're not as good at as giving out those thoughts. If I have to speak to you right now, I have to think exclusively about that. I'm kind of 2 steps ahead because I know what the next word is that I'm going to say.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you're just focused on what you're about to say. But when you're getting information from somebody, you can be absorbing what they're saying and dealing with sometimes even 2 other things. So it's if you counted in your head right now to what you thought was a minute, you did seconds. You could listen to me continue to talk to you. You're absorbing everything that I'm saying to you, but you would also be able to keep that count going.
Yeah.
Which is a really cool thing. I don't think you can do it while you're talking to somebody and trying to count at the same time.
That's true. The entire time you were talking, I was listening to you and counting for a little while, and also thinking about lunch. That was, I'm gonna say, the main part of what's been happening in my brain for the last 2.5 minutes, however long you've been talking. But now I'm just talking, and I just need to say other words, and I'm barely doing that.
Yeah, your receptive and your expressive are the completely different. Expressive takes all of your energy, and receptive you only need half. So when you are closing your eyes and you're thinking about that moment from your past, or you're thinking about just something very simple like sheep jumping over a fence, the quintessential thing, that is so easy because you're receiving just this thing that you already know what it's going to be. There's no surprises. and then you get to think on top of that. But the minute you are focused on something like something you have to take care of,
Yeah.
you're planning, and you're like, that feels more expressive. Like you're like, okay, well, I should write that check. Now I got to find the checkbook. I don't even know if that's expired. Do checks expire? Like all that stuff. Like you're.
Because I gave all my stamps to Ronan in his dream. Fuck.
And so I feel like that's where you end up staying awake, is that you are focused on something, and you just have to unfocus, basically, like unfocus your eyes, and then you will fall asleep.
Yeah.
But I've never tried melatonin. I've heard great things. I know a lot of people who give their children melatonin, and I think that maybe this sounds judgmental. I feel like maybe don't start that way. Like
Yeah.
don't start with the drugs. Like try and give them
No.
other strategies first.
And it's and I don't use them every night by any means. They're really like a break in case of emergency kind of thing, and I think that's why they're effective for me, because don't build up tolerance or anything.
Yeah.
But I tried other stuff before that, like NyQuil or ZQuil. Those haven't worked on me, and I had a doctor prescribe valerian, which
Valerian root, is that
yes,
it?
yeah.
God, why did I think that was like a Game of Thrones thing?
It
Are
is.
there
It's both.
Oh, okay.
They're spelled different.
Okay.
But when the doctor was like, "Hey, you're so stressed," and I was like, "Yeah, what should I do about stress?" I'm like, "Try valerian." I'm like, "Yeah, purpose. Valerian steel.
Yeah.
I'll slay my enemies, and then I'll sleep like a king."
And did that work?
It didn't work. No, the only thing that's
Valerian
worked
did not.
was melatonin that my mom, who was a medical professional, recommended.
Yeah.
And it was great to have like camping where none of your, like when you're in a tent camping, like backpacking kind of thing, not in the backyard. That's a really helpful thing where you're not going to get a great night's sleep. You're mostly just resting your body and your eyes as much as possible. But then pop in some melatonin and it's a little bit nicer.
I bet that because it's certainly with camping, it's really tough.
Yeah.
When you're in a new environment, it would be nice to have a shortcut. I had a lung infection at one point, and I got codeine for that.
Mm-hmm.
And codeine was very much a shortcut to falling asleep. Where I was like, oh, it could be so much easier.
Codeine is like a full-on serious painkiller?
I
What is
think
codeine?
So yeah.
Okay.
It's like and it's also one that makes you deeply drowsy.
Yeah.
And so I would take that right before I go to bed, and then it was even fun to try and fight it because it didn't matter at that point. It was just this wave that would take you.
Yeah.
And so you could do whatever you wanted. So you like just trying to stay awake on codeine was its own little fun game.
What side of the bed do you sleep on?
Great question, Daniel. Always the same side, even when like I'm on vacation or I'm somewhere. Like we went to a wedding recently. My wife was not there. I'm still on the correct side. I sleep on. If you're looking at the bed, I'm on the right. Like if you're at
Okay.
the foot of the bed and you're looking at it, I'm on the right. What about you?
I'm trying to figure it out now because I've slept in several different beds this year because I've done so much traveling. And I had come to the conclusion that I sleep on the side closest to the door to get in.
Okay.
That had been
Yeah.
what I thought I was doing. And then this Airbnb that I'm staying in, I'm not on the door side. I'm on the left side. And I'm trying to think, like when you're looking at the bed on the left side.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, so am I a left side sleeper? And is it just that coincidentally, that's the side that's been near the door? No. The last house I had before my current place, I was right side closest to the door. So there's no pattern to it,
Oh,
but I do definitely have a side that feels correct to me.
I do love that you sleep, even when you sleep alone, that you sleep closest to the door.
Yeah.
Because it to me just means like if I'm gonna be killed by a serial killer, let's just get it over with.
Yeah.
Like let's not give him extra work to do.
No, and it
burn
seems
more
like it's going to be
calories trying to get to me.
embarrassing to run in and was he going to climb over the bed?
Yeah, was he gonna do that knee thing where you
Yeah.
have to like walk on your knees over all of it? I sleep specifically on my side because I am a snorer, and I don't snore in one very specific position, which is if I'm lying on my left side on a pillow, I will not snore.
Yeah.
And so that's also, if I'm facing left, I can face towards like nightstand and like away from my wife, because when I'm facing towards her, then we're breathing in each other's faces, and I hate that.
Yeah. And so the question that I'm wondering, and I think a lot of our listeners and viewers are probably wondering, is there a chance that it's perhaps even more like Snorin Bowie. The show is Quick Question, but you knew that already. You can find me on Twitter at DOB_INC. You can find Soren at Soren_LTD. You can find the show on Twitter also. You can email the show at QQ with Soren and Daniel at gmail.com. Our theme song is by me, Rex. You can find their music anywhere you can find music. We are shot, edited, produced, engineered by Gabe Harder and Jacob Weinstein. We have a Patreon. You can support us on there. If you're only listening to this podcast, another reminder that you can also watch it on YouTube at QQ Podcast. That's got to be everything, right?
The end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Enter.
Yeah.
I would push enter.
Enter.
All right. Bye.
Soren Bowie, Daniel O'Brien, two best friends and comedy writers. If there's an answer, they're gonna find it. I think you'll have a great time here. I think you'll have a great time here.